I never thought my marriage would collapse like this. One moment, everything seemed normal, and the next, my world was shattered beyond recognition. It all started when my Aunt Natalie made the most ridiculous, outrageous request I had ever heard. She sat across from me at a cafe, sipping her overpriced latte as if she were about to discuss something trivial. But then she looked me straight in the eye and said, "Grace's birthday is coming up, and there's only one thing she truly wants this year. I need you to leave Adam." At first, I thought she was joking. I laughed, waiting for her to laugh too. But she didn't. Her face remained serious, her lips pressed together in a determined line. "Excuse me?" I said, still unable to fully process what I had just heard. "Grace has loved Adam for years," she said, as if this was a completely reasonable conversation. "She's convinced he's her soulmate. She believes you're standing in the way of their happiness." My stomach twisted into knots. Grace, her daughter, my cousin, was 26. Adam, my husband, was 30. I had never noticed anything between them, but Natalie spoke as if this had been some long-standing truth, something I had somehow been blind to. "Are you out of your mind?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Natalie sighed, placing her hand over mine in what I assumed was meant to be a comforting gesture. "You owe me, sweetheart," she said, her tone dropping into something more menacing. "I was there for you when you had nothing. I gave you money. I helped you survive when no one else would. It's time for you to repay the favor." I yanked my hand away from hers. "I already paid you back," I snapped. "I don't owe you anything. And even if I did, this is insane," she scoffed, as if my refusal was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. "Think about it," she said, gathering her purse. "Grace deserves to be happy, and so does Adam. Maybe you should step aside before you force him to make a decision on his own." Her words rattled me, but I left that cafe convinced that Adam would never be part of something so absurd. I was sure he would laugh when I told him, but I never got the chance. A week later, Adam came home from work looking tense. I asked if everything was okay, and he avoided my eyes. "We need to talk," he said. The pit in my stomach returned. I sat down, heart pounding, as he took a deep breath and said the words that broke me. "I think we should separate." Everything blurred after that. I barely registered what he was saying. Something about needing space, something about things not feeling right anymore. He never mentioned Grace. He never mentioned Natalie. But deep down, something told me this wasn't just about us. He packed a bag and left that night. I stayed up, staring at the walls, unable to comprehend how everything had unraveled so quickly. Then a few days later, I got a call from a mutual friend. "You need to know something," she said. "It's Natalie. She's been talking to Adam. She told him you're selfish, that you never appreciated her, that you've been keeping secrets from him. She's been twisting everything." I felt sick. "There's more," she continued. "There's a rumor going around that Adam and Grace might be seeing each other now." I dropped the phone. My hands shook. My mind refused to process the words. No, not Adam, not my husband, not Grace. But as the days passed and Adam didn't reach out, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, this had been his way out all along. I needed answers. I needed the truth. So I called Adam. He didn't pick up. I texted him. Nothing. Until one day I saw him, not with Grace, but with Natalie. She was standing beside him outside a restaurant, her hand on his arm leaning in too close, her lips moving as if whispering something secretive. Adam wasn't pulling away. He wasn't looking uncomfortable. He was looking at her, like she was something special. I felt my heart slam against my ribs. My skin burned with the heat of betrayal, and for a moment I thought I might throw up right there on the sidewalk. They hadn't seen me. I stood frozen, hidden behind the corner of a building, watching the man I had loved, the man I had married, standing there with my aunt as if I had never existed. The world blurred. I stumbled back, my breathing uneven. This wasn't Grace. This was Natalie. Aunt Natalie. The realization hit me like a truck. Grace had never been the one after Adam. Natalie had been using her as a cover, a twisted excuse to manipulate everything to her advantage. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. I needed to know the truth. I needed proof. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed them. They entered the restaurant together laughing, as if the destruction of my marriage was some kind of joke. I waited a few minutes before stepping inside, keeping a distance, finding a table just out of their view but close enough to hear. "Stephen's getting suspicious," Natalie said, stirring her wine. Stephen, her husband, Grace's father. Adam sighed, rubbing his temple. "He won't find out unless you slip up. We just need to hold out a little longer." I felt the air leave my lungs. "Hold out a little longer for what?" Natalie smirked, leaning closer, her voice lowering into something conspiratorial. "Once the divorce is finalized, we won't have to hide anymore." Divorce, my divorce. They were waiting for it. My hands shook under the table. I had suspected something was wrong, but this was worse than anything I had imagined. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning a future together. I barely remember leaving the restaurant. I don't remember how I got home. All I remember is the rage, the pure, burning, all-consuming rage. The next morning, I called Stephen. "I need to meet with you," I said. "It's about Natalie." There was a pause, then a sigh. I was hoping someone else would finally see it too. So he already knew something was off. Good. We met that afternoon at a coffee shop. Stephen looked tired, older than I remembered, like someone who had been carrying a weight far too heavy for too long. "Tell me what you know," I said. And he did. He had been suspicious for months. Natalie had been secretive, disappearing for hours, coming home late with flimsy excuses. "I thought it was just her usual manipulation games," he admitted. "But then I caught her with him." I exhaled sharply. "You saw them together?" Stephen nodded, looking exhausted. "I came home early from a business trip. She didn't expect me. I found them in our bedroom." My stomach churned. "She wasn't even ashamed," he said bitterly. "She acted like I was the problem, like I should just accept it." I clenched my jaw. She tried to ruin my marriage to be with my husband, and she used Grace as a distraction. Stephen looked startled for a moment, then his eyes darkened. "That explains why Grace has been so confused lately. She told me she had no idea what Natalie was talking about when she kept saying she had feelings for Adam. So Grace had never been in on it. This was all Natalie's twisted game." I took a deep breath. "We need to do something." Stephen nodded. "Oh, don't worry. We will." The confrontation happened at a family gathering. It was a birthday dinner for my grandmother, one of the rare occasions where almost everyone in the family came together. Natalie, of course, was there, acting like she was still the sophisticated, respected woman she had always pretended to be. Adam was there too, sitting beside her, their chairs too close. I waited until everyone was settled before I stood up. "I have something to say," I announced, my voice carrying through the dining room. The conversations died down. All eyes turned to me. Natalie smiled tightly. "Oh dear, is this really the time? You manipulated my husband into leaving me." I cut her off. Gasps echoed around the room. Her face paled. I don't know what you're talking about." Stephen stood up beside me. "Don't play dumb, Natalie. We know everything." Adam shifted uncomfortably, glancing around as whispers spread like wildfire. "You lied to everyone," I continued. "You pretended Grace was in love with Adam just to cover up the fact that you were the one having an affair with him." Grace's fork clattered onto her plate. "What?" Natalie's mask cracked. "This is ridiculous." "Stephen walked in on you," I said coldly. "In your own house. In your own bed." Silence. Pure, suffocating silence. And then, "You disgusting, selfish woman," Grace hissed, standing up so fast her chair nearly toppled over. "You used me. You let me look like some obsessed idiot while you... Her voice broke. Stephen took a step forward. "I'm filing for divorce," he said, his voice steely, "and I'll make sure you get nothing." Natalie's face twisted. "Stephen, please. Let's talk." "Talk," he scoffed. "Like you talked to Adam behind my back?" Adam finally found his voice. "Maybe we should take this somewhere more private." "Why?" I snapped. "Afraid of a little public humiliation? You had no problem sneaking around behind my back." He had the decency to look guilty. Natalie looked desperate now. "Stephen, you can't..." "I can and I will," he said. You can have Adam. See how well he treats you once he realizes he gave up everything for a woman who destroys lives for fun. I turned to Adam, my voice calm despite the storm raging inside me. You made your choice, I said. I hope she was worth it. And then I walked away. I never spoke to Natalie again. Her life fell apart after that. Stephen followed through with the divorce and took everything. Grace cut her off completely, refusing to even speak to her. Adam? Well, their little fairy tale didn't last long. Once the excitement of the affair faded, once the secrecy was gone, Adam saw Natalie for who she truly was. And by then, he had nothing left. No wife, no home, no respect. As I walked out of that dining room, my heart was pounding in my chest. I had exposed them. Everyone knew the truth now, but I also knew Natalie. She wouldn't go down quietly. And Adam, well, he had just lost everything. And when people lose everything, they become dangerous. I barely made it to my car before my phone started buzzing. Adam, I ignored it. Then Natalie, ignored again. And then, Grace. I hesitated, then picked up. Her voice was shaking. You need to come back. I froze. Why? Mom, she's lost it. She's screaming, throwing things. She's saying this isn't over. She's blaming you for everything. I clenched my jaw. Where is Adam? I asked. Grace hesitated. He's still here, but he looks scared. Like he wasn't expecting this to go so bad. I exhaled. Good, let him sit in it. Just, please be careful, she said. I don't trust her. Neither did I. When I got back to the house, chaos was in full swing. Natalie stood in the middle of the room, her face red with rage, a half-empty glass of wine in her hand. This is all your fault, she spat as soon as she saw me. You ungrateful little bitch. I didn't even flinch. My fault? You destroyed your own life, Natalie. All I did was tell the truth. She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. You think you've won, don't you? She sneered. You think you've got the upper hand because you humiliated me in front of the family. I don't need the upper hand, I said calmly. I already won the moment Adam realized what a mistake he made. Adam, standing off to the side, looked away. Natalie's eyes blazed. And then before I could react, she lunged. I barely had time to move before she was grabbing at my hair, her nails clawing at my arm. You ruined my life, she shrieked. You took everything from me. I shoved her back, my breath coming in ragged gasps. You did this to yourself, I shot back. You lied, you manipulated, you cheated. You thought you could control everyone, and now it's falling apart, and you can't handle it. She was breathing heavily, her eyes wild, her hands clenched into fists. I should have destroyed you when I had the chance, she hissed. You tried, I said coldly. And look where it got you. Grace stepped in, her voice trembling. Mom, stop. Please. But Natalie wasn't done. Her eyes flickered to Adam. Tell her, she demanded. Tell her the truth. My stomach twisted. Adam swallowed hard. Natalie, he said quietly, just let it go. Her lip curled. Oh, so now you want to be a coward? You used me, Adam shot back, his voice rising. You convinced me I was unhappy. You made me think I needed you. But you were just playing a game, weren't you? You never actually loved me. You just wanted to win. Silence. And then, I was always better than her. Natalie spat, her voice shaking. You were supposed to choose me. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. All this time, she had never cared about Adam. She didn't even love him. She just wanted to beat me. You're pathetic, I whispered. Natalie's eyes snapped to me, full of venom. Shut your mouth. Stephen, who had been silent this entire time, finally stepped forward. You're done, Natalie, he said quietly. She turned to him, laughing. Oh, Stephen, still trying to play the good guy? He didn't react. I've already spoken to my lawyer. You'll be hearing from him soon. The color drained from her face. You wouldn't. I would, he said. And I am. Natalie took a shaky step back. You can't just... I can, Stephen said. You think you're untouchable, but you're not. You're just a sad, bitter woman who thought she could manipulate her way through life. Well, guess what? The game is over. She was shaking now. "You're going to regret this," she whispered. "No," I said. "We won't." She looked at me one last time, eyes full of hatred, and then she walked out. Adam tried to talk to me after that. He tried to apologize. "I was stupid," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I let her get inside my head. I don't even know why I cut him off. "I don't care why," I said. "You made your choice. Now live with it." He flinched. "Is there any way we can fix this?" I laughed, shaking my head. "No, Adam," I said, "there's not." And I walked away. Stephen divorced Natalie. Grace cut her off completely. Adam? Well, last I heard, he was alone. As for me, I was finally free. Free of the lies. Free of the manipulation. Free of the people who never truly cared about me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. As I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, the city lights stretching endlessly before me, I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. The weight of my past, of Adam, of Natalie, of all the betrayals had finally started to lift. I wasn't healed, not completely. Wounds like these take time, but I was no longer drowning in them. I was moving forward, and that was enough. Grace had reached out a few times. She was trying to rebuild her own life, figuring out who she was outside of her mother's shadow. I didn't blame her for what happened, and in some ways, I pitied her. She had been just another pawn in Natalie's game, just like me, just like Adam. Adam? I heard he wasn't doing well. The last time I saw him, he looked exhausted, like a man carrying a lifetime of regret on his shoulders. He had tried reaching out to me again, but I had nothing left to say. He had chosen his path, and now he had to walk it alone. And Natalie? Her downfall had been swift and brutal. Stephen had followed through on the divorce. Without his financial support and without her pristine social reputation intact, she had lost everything. The whispers about her affair, about how she had tried to manipulate her own niece's marriage, spread faster than she could control. People distanced themselves. Business deals fell through. Invitations stopped coming. She was alone now. The woman who had spent her entire life controlling others now had no one left to control. I should have felt satisfaction. I should have been happy to see her finally face the consequences of her actions. But all I felt was nothing. She wasn't worth my energy anymore. The truth is, people like Natalie and Adam don't just destroy others, they destroy themselves. As for me, I was learning to live again. I was learning to love myself in ways I never had before. Because here's what I've realized. The people who truly love you will never put you in a position where you have to prove your worth. They will never make you question your place in their life. So if you're holding on to someone who doesn't value you, let them go. Trust me, nothing is lonelier than being with someone who makes you feel invisible. What do you think? Have you ever had to walk away from someone who betrayed you? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories.